How does Jack think about money?
I think a huge part of generating wealth is learning how to. When I learned about it, it blew my mind because brand new business owners can get access to between $100,000 and $200,000. No track record. The business can be a week old.
Oh my goodness.
Age on the business will help, but
yes,
the age on the business is not significant. The most significant thing is.
So let's transition into the masterclass. Jack McColl, man.
What's up, Caleb?
We made it happen, and I just want to say thank you to Steve Harward for letting us use his brand new studio. Man, I'm so grateful. We met, how many, was it 10 months ago?
Yeah.
Heard you speak at our friend Carlton Dennis's event, and you're talking about credit card hacking, points. You're doing some amazing things with your clients, like helping them find money and then being able to do some incredible things. I ask a lot of people this because it helps the frame with everything framework wise. What is your wealth framework? Like if I were to say, okay, Jack, we don't have the whole podcast to talk about this, but how would you explain money? And if you had to give me steps, or how does Jack think about money? How would you answer that?
100%. So let's jump into that exact question, and then love to jump into credit on how it completely changed my life, completely changed my journey as an entrepreneur. And then now what I'm doing, helping thousands of people with this specific credit product. And then the systems you mentioned, really the systems in the business that I run has allowed me to have a ton of freedom.
Yeah.
I was snowboarding this morning, I was snowboarding yesterday morning, and I just checked my phone, check it Slack, invoice paid. And the only reason that's happening is because I've built such an amazing team around me and just created a process on top of a great offer.
Yeah.
So that's really been really impactful for me. But to the wealth, I think a huge part of generating wealth is learning how to access money. You don't need to have money, but I think you need to have access to money to be able to start multiplying money.
Okay.
And so for me, when I was 20 to really 28, my first 8 years of entrepreneurship, one, I didn't have money.
Yeah.
And two, I didn't have access to money.
Yeah.
And so we would just sell some product, make some profit, kind of slowly snowball it.
Yeah.
But 7 or 8 years into my journey as an entrepreneur, I learned about business credit cards. And it completely changed the way I looked at accessing money. And it really blew my mind because I was an entrepreneur already for so long, of 4 or 5 different four business ventures at that point. And I didn't even know about business credit cards. And I knew that if I didn't know, there's got to be a ton of other people that didn't know. So what was crazy, and I know you're relatively advanced and you probably have some good business credit
Eli
cards.
kicked my butt when it came to credit card points, but yeah, I got a gold card now.
Cool.
And I'm not the guy that runs with the platinum on everything. Yeah, just by the way, look at this. All these cards.
Anyone on video, this is my main stack. This is my side stack. Geez, I probably have 100 business credit cards right now, if not 150. I mean, these are all 50 brand new ones. I have a lot of credit cards. But really, when I learned about it, it blew my mind because brand new business owners can get access to between $100,000 and $200,000.
No track record.
No track record. All they need is good credit. They don't need tax returns. The business can be a week old.
Oh my goodness.
Age on the business will help, but
the
age on the business is not significant. The most significant thing is having a good personal credit profile and knowing what cards and what banks to go apply at, and then how to complete those applications is significant too. But for someone brand new in business, like I was, in terms of a brand new entity, I got approved for just under $500,000 in 14 months. And that's because I had a good profile. I got in touch with business relationship managers, which are the bridge between the consumers like us and the underwriters. And I learned all the things that the underwriters wanted to see on a credit profile. I learned what they want to see on an application. I learned what they want to see in terms of if you're opening a bank account at that bank or not, how much money is in the account, for how long, do business credit scores matter, what do they want to see on the personal credit profile? And I'll go over just a few things on a strong personal credit profile. So anytime you have collections, that's bad. Go hire a credit repair company, get those removed. But in terms of someone with good, clean payment history, you ideally do not want to have more than 2 inquiries in the last 6 months. If you have more than that, it starts to get risky, denials start to happen. In terms of average age, ideally you want over 5 years of age, and you can always get added to someone's card as an authorized user to increase that age. So that's a pretty big factor right there, just the age of the personal credit profile. But you can change that by that strategy of getting added as an authorized user. 2 other significant things is ideally you want to have at least 4 personal credit cards open with collective limits of at least 15K. If you add up your limits on your primary credit cards, those limits should at least be 15K. It is best if you have between $40,000 and $80,000 in limits between your primary cards. And I know these data points very good because in my coaching program, I've helped teach over 3,000 entrepreneurs on how to get access to crazy amounts of money. I've serviced several hundreds of people through my Done For You funding offer. And when we look at all this data, we see certain correlations. And it's the people who have minimum 15K on their cards. That's one strong thing to see right there. And then also, one thing where people really shoot themselves in the foot is if they apply for too many personal cards in a short period of time. So you should never apply for more than 2 personal cards in a 6-month window. 2 cards per 6 months. If you're at 3 or 4, like you're gonna start to get some denials. So that's really how to optimize a personal credit profile. And then, you want me to keep going?
Well, so let's hit the pause button. So you're at 28 years old and you're learning about this, like, access to money. And now, obviously, one of my red flags goes up, okay, credit cards, but one thing I know about you is 0% access to money, which, if that sounds too good to be true, like, you've built a whole business, a very successful business around teaching people about that. And so, like, what were you doing when you found out about that? And then, like, what was the process of you learning that? And then, yes, then I want you to just go right into the masterclass, which you've already started. But, like, I want people, like, to be taking notes, to be like, okay, even if they didn't work with you personally, what are the steps on how I can take this information and start applying it? But then what are the mistakes that people make as well? Because, like, what we're not saying is go get any type of credit card and go do stuff. Like, at least that's not what I'm saying. And you got to be careful. And, like, with a lot of this information, incredible, but also, like, there could be some downsides to it as well.
For sure. And I'm glad you mentioned that because there is risks involved with borrowing money, specifically on credit cards. So the specific credit cards I'm talking about with these business credit cards are 0% for 12 to 18 months. Most are 12 months. And so for a lot of business owners that I work with, they usually have an opportunity in front of them where they know if I had 50 or 100,000 and I put that money from this business credit card into this business opportunity or investment, that I can most likely make X amount return. And if there's a clear line where you use that money, it creates a profit, and then you can pay off the card before the 12 months is over, then it makes sense. But for people to get capital like this and not spend it wisely, not put it into a business or an investment, it can be not a good situation. So it's generally for people who have a clear idea on how to invest the money. A lot of people that I work with that do really good, like brand new people in business that do really good, this specific niche is people in Airbnb arbitrage. It's a very easy business model to get started on where you go rent a house, you can use business credit, and then you buy some furniture and then you rent it on Airbnb. And it's just very easy for newer people in business to start that business model. And there's a very clear line of returning the money back to the card. So for me, when I was getting the credit, this was in before COVID, I was already doing e-commerce. I've sold hoverboards on Shopify. I've sold inflatable loungers on Shopify. And now I wanted to get into drop shipping. And so I knew that if I had more money to work with, I was going to make so much more money. And I knew that specifically because when I was selling the stuff on Shopify, that was my biggest limit, was access to capital.
So that was the biggest constraint.
It was the biggest constraint by far. We were doing really good, but we would buy the inventory from China, we'd boat it over, we'd sell it, we'd send the money over, wait for more inventory, and it was a very slow process. And I just knew if we had more money, we would have made so much more money. And so that was a really eye-opening experience to just be limited like that, and then learning about this credit product where I now know how to get access to hundreds of thousands of dollars where I'm really not paying interest.
Yeah.
And then there's also the business credit product, business lines of credit, which you can get at 10%.
Yeah, which
used to be less than 10%.
Yeah.
Well, for most people, you can make a good return even if you're borrowing money at 9 or 10%.
Yeah, that's amazing. Okay, so let's transition into the masterclass. I want to understand, like, even if we didn't like work in your program or hire you, because I know people have done that and people have gotten incredible results. Like, I want to know how, like, the steps on how we can even figure out is this something I should do or not.
100%. And I really think this type of credit product is perfect for people who are trying to escape. Escape the system, escape the matrix, escape the 9 to 5. It is the easiest way to get capital. And when you mentioned an equity partner, for one of my ventures where I was selling the hoverboards, this was after, when I was selling the inflatables actually. When I was selling the hoverboards, I was constrained, my constraint was cash.
Yeah.
And I learned that. When we were selling the hoverboards, we brought on an equity partner who brought the cash, and it turned out they were a terrible equity partner, and we gave him 51% of the company. You know, that was a early mistake I made.
A Jack lesson, right?
That was a Jack lesson right there. The contracts weren't strong enough, and they were not the right partner. So that's a huge risk for giving away equity, is bringing on the wrong partners. It can be very difficult. We had to buy them out, and it was not fun. So when it comes to starting your own business, this is the easiest way to get access to the capital. And I think when people are setting up for taking a leap of faith, taking a risk, you kind of want to align some other things in your life so you can really give it your all for give yourself a runway of at least a year. Yeah. And then other things will start to fall in place after that. But really allow yourself to focus. And one thing I love about business is what I've noticed is you don't have to be that smart to be successful. Like, I don't find myself that smart. And I've seen other people that are not that smart and they crush it.
Yeah. All of Jack's friends are just flipping you off right now. They're like, thanks, bro.
It's the people that work their butt off.
Yeah.
And don't give up.
Yeah.
That will push against the grain and take the risk. It's really true. And so when if we want to loop back to some of the tactics here, I think I hope you guys took some notes on optimizing the credit profile. Another really important thing is to making sure the business owners are building relationships with the right banks.
Yep.
So when it comes to relationships, you can do that in 2 ways with the banks. 1 through bank accounts, 2 through credit cards.
Okay.
And so part of optimizing your personal profile is you want to make sure you're getting the best personal cards. Cards at Chase, cards at Bank of America, American Express. Because when you get those personal cards, those cards look better on your profile than a card from a credit union.
Got it.
Or some stupid retail store account. Never apply for those cards, ever. Apply for cards at tier 1 banks like Amex, or really tier 1 is Citi, Wells Fargo, and Chase, because those cards look good on your profile and they build a relationship with those banks.
Interesting.
So not all banks have 0% interest business credit cards, but some of the big ones do, even some of the smaller ones. But it's important to, when you're building a relationship, either on a credit card or a bank, you want to make sure, if your goal is getting 0% credit, you want to make sure you're building a relationship with a bank that has that product.
Yes.
Like Navy Federal doesn't have a 0% card, but a lot of people get big personal limits there. I'm still not a fan because you're not building a relationship with a bank that has what you want if it's 0%.
Yes.
So Chase, Wells Fargo, Amex, Bank of America, personal cards there, and then banking there.
Yep.
I think every single business owner should be banking at Chase.
Okay.
100%. Chase is relationship based, and if you have a bank account there, it's easier to get a high limit card.
Okay.
Chase has the highest limit business credit cards. I guess the easiest ones to get, 50,000, 75,000. So the most you can get at Chase on business cards before showing tax returns is 150,000.
And is this their Chase Inc. or?
Yeah, so there's 3 Chase Incs.
Okay.
Inc Cash, Inc Unlimited, and Inc Preferred. The Preferred is not a 0% card.
Okay, yeah, I think that's the one I have.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a great card. It's a great travel card. But that was another mistake I made. My first business credit card, I applied for the Inc Preferred, thinking it was 0%, and it wasn't.
Okay.
And I was like, oh, crap. I got the wrong card, is what it is. But anyways, getting a good relationship built
yeah.
at Chase is very important.
Yes.
So bank there, bank at Wells Fargo, bank at Bank of America.
Okay.
Most times, if you have a bank account open before you apply for the business credit card, it is a significant difference of limit or even the approval.
Here's and tell me if I'm getting in the way of this, the Masterclass, but I have a Chase Inc. preferred, and our business is doing quite well, and I don't even have a $100,000 limit, a monthly limit. What's wrong with me? Like, where did I go wrong?
It could be how you applied,
Yeah.
whether it be online, whether it be through a relationship manager. It's always better through a relationship manager.
Okay.
Not at all banks, but Chase specifically, it is. It also depends on what projected revenue you put on the application, what personal income you put on the application, what your credit profile looked like on the day that they pulled your credit. And with credit, it can your score can fluctuate 100 points.
Yeah,
from
and just be
high
clear, I've had this
utilization
for
to
7
low.
years, so maybe it's just and back even 7 years ago, my constraint was not cash, so it was just like I wanted a card where I could start getting points and not use a debit card.
I got a great strategy for you. This is a really good strategy. So one thing I love about Chase, and you can do this at a couple banks, and I just did this at Chase. So when you get a 0% card or any credit card at Chase, when you get another business credit card at Chase, you can move the limit from the first card to the second.
Okay, so
let me give you an example. So what's the limit on your preferred?
I think it's like 47,000.
Okay, not bad. And maybe they increase it over the 7 years.
Yeah.
So you have a $47K limit on a non-0% card.
Correct.
If you applied for a 0% card, like the Inc. Cash or the Inc. Unlimited, and say, ideally you get a $50K limit.
Yep.
But even if you got a $5K limit, you can now move the $47K from that current card over to the brand new card.
Yep.
So now you have $52,000 of 0%.
Yep.
Okay.
That makes sense.
Then you have that 0% for a year.
Yep.
And then you pay the balance down and you apply for another 0% card.
And they let you do that?
Yeah. And then you get the sign-up bonus, which is 100 to 120,000 points, which we like to do that in business class travel, and it's great to have those points. But then you can keep doing that.
Wow.
And so I just did this also at Bank of America several months ago, actually. But I had $40,000 on a Bank of America card.
Yeah.
I got 3 more, and that 0% expired. I got 3 more Bank of America cards, one for 11K, and like 22K. So 44K. So then I moved, it was actually, I think, 35. I moved the old 35,000 over to the brand new 34.
Yep.
So then I had, was that 84, I think it is?
Yeah.
I had that 0% for 9 months at Bank of America.
Wow.
So that's a major strategy. And that's why a lot of business cards you don't want to close. Personal cards you really never want to close because it just keeps that history. Yeah. The business cards at banks that allow you to do that, you never want to close. So I'll list them. Chase, Bank of America, American Express are the 3 main ones that let you do that. U.S. Bank does not.
Okay.
So that's a really
Don't bank at U.S. Bank? Is that
U.S. Bank they do have 0% cards.
Yeah.
And they do give good limits, but they don't let that to happen.
Yes, I understand. They don't let that.
I don't put them at my favorite or second favorite, but they're up there.
Okay, so step number 1 is build a relationship.
Yeah.
Step number 2.
So step number 1 is really optimize the profile.
Optimize the profile. Step number 2 is build the relationship.
Which you can do simultaneously, but we can list them step 1, step 2. Make your personal credit profile look good. It's much more than just a score. It's the profile. The number of accounts. Like you need 20 open accounts to have a perfect 850 credit score. So build that over time. Build the relationships. Don't waste your relationship. Another thing I'll mention about personal credit cards is each application you submit is precious. Like if you get denied or approved, you get a hard inquiry. And the more hard inquiries you get, the worse your credit is and the more denials you'll have. And even if you're approved, like I mentioned, you don't want to get more than 2 approved in a 6-month period. So they're precious. You want to be very strategic. Very intentional. So my favorite personal cards, and this is my high limit personal card list. Because again, with the intention is if you apply for a card, you want to get a high limit. Because the higher limits you have on your personal cards, generally the higher limits you get on business cards. until you go like $100,000 collective, then it actually starts hurting you. But most people don't even have close. So my favorite high limit cards are the Chase Sapphire Preferred,
Okay.
the Chase Freedom Unlimited, and the Built card, which is issued by Wells Fargo.
Okay.
You can also pay your rent on that card.
Yep.
It's a great card. One of my favorite.
Yeah.
I'll add the City Strata card to that list as well. And so anytime that I'm looking at someone's credit profile and their limits are less than 30,000,
those would be the cards that you.
those are the four.
Okay.
Yeah. I would start at Chase Freedom Unlimited. Second would be Chase Sapphire Preferred. I'd pick one of them. Don't do both, but pick one of them. Built by Wells Fargo.
Yep.
Great card. A lot of 10 to 20K approvals. And then City Strata is on there too.
And would the Amex Gold or Platinum be a good one for points, but not necessarily what you would go for if you're trying to get high, like 0%? Because talk about the strategies are a little bit different. Yeah. One side is like, hey, I perceive the points game as like, hey, your constraint might not be 0%. Mm-hmm. You're going to use it. You're going to pay off your balance every month. You're going to get points. You're going to be able to leverage those points. This play is more of like, hey, points are great. We're going to get points. But the main goal is to get capital cheaply, 0%, and to be able to do something with that. And then like that activity is going to could change your life. Am I on? Is that like the two ways to think about credit card game? It's like either the points game or 0%. There's some overlap, but the ways that you think about it could change.
Totally. So there is kind of two strategies here. Is your intention, and back to just being strategic and intentional in general.
Yep.
If your intention is the 0% cards, the strategy changes a little bit. It's exactly what I've been talking about. Yep. But if your strategy is points, like getting big sign-up bonuses, travel hacking, which I also love, it's a slightly different strategy. Yep. You're getting slightly different cards. Some of the big cards at Chase do come with epic sign-up bonuses, 120,000 point sign-up bonuses, insane. But other 0% cards don't really have those sign-up bonuses.
Got it.
So it does depend on what your main intention is. Yep. You can do both kind of simultaneously, but better to pick one of those strategies. One thing you said that reminded me of something is the Amex Gold. Yep. Okay, so the Amex Business Gold, actually the white gold. This
the white gold.
New white gold that I just got. Pretty good.
And that's a personal or is that a business?
This one's actually a business.
Okay.
But you mentioned the Amex Gold, so let's talk about that. It's a personal card. So here's why I don't like the Amex Personal Gold or the Personal Platinum.
Yep.
If your intention is 0% cards, it's because these are charge cards. Yep. They don't have a limit. Yes. They're not credit cards.
Yes.
So
interesting.
So they have spending power, but on a credit report, it doesn't list a limit.
Oh.
So it doesn't build your comparable credit. It doesn't build your collective limits.
Interesting.
So there's a good sign-up bonus on it.
Yeah. But I'm not really helping myself with my credit score by getting an Amex.
Having the account open for the personal gold will help with the total amount of accounts you have. It'll help out with average age over time. Yeah. But if your short-term goal was, maybe if someone's listening and they're like, I only have $10,000 in collective credit limits on my personal cards. Yeah. That would not be a good card to do, the Amex Gold, because it doesn't report a limit on your profile. Yeah. So it won't increase your collective limits.
Got it.
You would want to do a card from my high limit list card, like the Chase Freedom Unlimited, Chase Sapphire Preferred, etc., because that increases your limits.
Love it. And we'll have a bunch of links, including like all your resources down below, but all the things that we're mentioning, the show notes are going to be your best friend in this. Okay, so so optimize your personal credit. Yep. Build a relationship.
Yep. Number 3 would be just applying in the best possible way.
Yeah, and use it precious. It's precious.
With a specific order.
Okay.
So I always like to hammer Chase first.
Okay.
Because most likely you're going to get the biggest limit. Chase first, US Bank, and then really the rest doesn't really matter.
Okay.
When it comes to the application on a per bank basis, sometimes you want to do it through a relationship manager. Other times it really doesn't matter.
Yeah.
A lot of banks have these relationship managers, but sometimes they're not getting higher limits.
Yeah.
Bank of America is one of those banks. I've worked with one and I get better limits without one.
Okay. Wow.
So Chase you want to get connected with the relationship manager.
How do you do that? I don't even know if I.
It's a good question. It's not ultra simple.
Yeah.
They're dedicated individuals for pretty much business owners that generate millions of revenue.
Yep.
So it's not easy for the average person, quite frankly, but I've been fortunate enough to build very good relationships with these individuals.
Yep.
And with the business where I help people in my
Yep.
programs, I can send these relationship managers vetted and good people,
Got it.
good credit profiles.
Oh, nice.
So I help people modify their, optimize their
Yeah.
credit, and then I kind of vouch for them.
Yeah.
Hey, relationship manager, I got client Joe.
Yeah.
I'm gonna refer you. He's a good person. He's got a great business he's working
Got
on.
it.
So I kind of vouch for them.
Yeah.
But you can sometimes wheel and deal when you're in a Chase branch and ask for a relationship manager, and you got to be smooth with your talking.
Yeah, that's
and
right.
like in life, anything's possible.
Yeah, that's right.
Some things are harder than other
One of my
things.
favorite questions is, what are the chances? And then what are the chances? And then fill in the blank. And then it makes someone like want to help you. And I don't know where I got that, but I read that from
good.
some book, and and it works. What are the chances I can get a upgrade?
That's pretty good.
And it's not threatening, and it's like, we're gonna help you. Yeah, chances are we'll make this happen.
That's good.
Yeah.
It's almost similar to that. What you said is sometimes when I'm like in a situation, maybe even traveling, and I really don't know what to do, or I'm like asking for advice, I'm asking questions.
Yep.
If I'm asking a gate agent a question, I like to frame it in, if you were in my shoes, what would you do?
That's great.
Because now they're thinking like it's just a little bit more
Yeah.
personable.
Yeah.
And like, oh, well, this is what I would do, and you can kind of get a little bit more helpful
That's good.
information that way.
That's good. Okay, so apply, and you're saying obviously if you can get you call them an account manager or
Business relationship manager.
business relationship manager. If you can pull that off, great. But if someone's like watching this and they're not working with you and they're starting a brand new business, probably pretty tough.
It's not easy.
Not easy.
Yeah.
So
Maybe you have a friend that has already worked with one. That's an option.
What other things, hacks, when it comes to applying are like good to know?
On the application, there's certain, and it differs by bank, but there's certain thresholds where if you project a certain amount of income, personal income or business revenue, there's a significant chance they're gonna ask you for tax returns and ask you to connect your bank account.
So the goal is to project high enough but low enough.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And what's the ethical line? Is it because if you're a brand new business, you may not have a track record, but you just have to give them the best guess of like what you're hoping to earn? Is that the
Best guess on what you're hoping to earn.
Yeah.
It's a nice way to say it.
Okay.
It's stated income. It's what are you projected to make.
I feel like this is like pre-2008 when people are like, hey, your stated income needs to be this to get this home. I feel like
maybe a little bit. But yeah, it's stated income. And so it depends on the bank, depends on the mainly just the bank. So American Express, for example, is more you want to project lower.
Yeah.
And even like the other week,
because there's no upside really, because it's not like they give you credit limits.
American Express does have 0% cards.
Okay, they do.
Yeah,
Okay.
they have the charge cards, the gold and platinum, and they also have 0% cards. They have two.
Interesting.
So yeah, when it comes to personal income, projecting, especially American Express, projecting over 250, to tell them you make that personally, then they start to ask for you to connect your bank account. Business revenue, it's different from every single bank, but Amex specifically, I just applied for a card the other day. 445,000 is what I projected on one application at American Express, and I got approved. Business Platinum. Here's what I'll mention actually. On the Business Platinum, the sign-up bonuses at American Express, they are generally once in a lifetime. Where at Chase, when we talked about that strategy, you get one every single year, maybe even two a year, you get the sign-up bonus every single time. Same at other banks. At American Express, it's generally once in a lifetime. Unless you get a targeted offer where you look in the terms and conditions and you don't see the language right under terms and conditions or like offer, it says either if you've had this sign-up bonus before, you won't be eligible. But if that sentence is not there, it's a small little paragraph,
available?
Then it's available.
Interesting.
And so I just got a targeted offer on that white gold like 3 months ago, somewhere around 200,000, I forget, high.
Yeah.
And then I just got a targeted offer for a 250,000 point sign-up bonus for the Business Platinum. And I already have the card.
Yeah.
But Amex, they like me.
Yeah.
They sent me the targeted offer, and then I applied.
Wow.
And I used that projected revenue, and I got approved.
Amazing. So anything else on the application that is, I know every bank's different, everyone's different, but income is something that you want to make sure that you get right. What are other areas that are key to flying with?
Those are the main two things. The nature of the business. So if you do have a bank account, here's actually a good topic. So there's something called an NAICS code.
Okay.
NAICS code. And it classifies your industry based on risk.
Yep. Yes.
So if you're construction, it's very high risk. You'll have a construction NAICS code. If you're a lower risk business like property management or software development, that's a lower risk. There's generally less overhead. When there's a lot of overhead, that's generally higher risk.
Yes.
So before I have people open up bank accounts, I ask what their nature of business is, and they'll tell me, and I kind of help them determine what that code should be.
Yeah.
Like within accurate reason.
Yeah.
If like you do construction, you're not going to say like, oh, I do e-commerce.
Yeah. But you want to make sure that it's as favorable as possible.
As favorable as possible, And that could be a big mistake people make if they have no idea about the NAICS codes, and maybe if someone had a brick and mortar gym, but a significant portion of their business was online fitness training. Well, that's way less risk than the brick and mortar gym. So that would be like a favorable side to lean on. It's one example. So it's really looking at that in the nature of business. And when you go into the bank to open the account, they're going to ask you, what does your business do? They're asking you that so they can give you this code. And generally the bankers in the branch generally have almost no idea what's going on. It's these business relationship managers that like know some things. The information that the general bankers have is a lot of times very wrong, quite frankly. So you want to do the research ahead of time. You can go to NAICS.com and like do a little bit of research on getting a lower risk code. Give them that code. Give them that nature of business when you open the account. And then when you're applying, you want to use that same code so it matches.
That makes sense.
It needs to be congruent. Another thing that is helpful is the state your business is registered in will determine what business credit options you have available to you.
Interesting.
So Florida, for example, is a very good state for lending because there's also Truist, there's Citizens Bank, there's Wells Fargo, which Wells Fargo is not in all 50 states. It's in 39. So when I look at all these different states, Florida has the most options. There's a select few, but it's usually banks that have Citizens and have Truist, which those are regional. But if your state has those, that's a really good thing because they have business cards, and states like Texas or Wyoming don't have, actually Texas does have Truist. But state to state, the options will change. So if someone is thinking about what state should I register my business in, and of course there's other reasons like other benefits, tax reasons, being anonymous in certain states. You're more familiar with those things than me. But one of the things I think is worth looking at is what banking options, what 0% options are in these states. And I have people think about that. So is Florida a good option? Is North Carolina a good option? Montana's not a good option. For example.
Dude, I love how nerdy you get about this whole thing. Like you're bringing up things that I can honestly say I've never thought in my entire life. Like I always when they're like, what business? I'm always annoyed, and I'm just like, I'm half-assing the like, oh, I'll be an accounting firm. And I'm like not even thinking about how that affects my situation. And unfortunately, and I told this to Eli as well, like I'm just not taking advantage of all the things that I could. And as a result, the opportunity cost of that is pretty large in my case. And I can't imagine people that, are able to use this concept. So, okay, so optimize your personal credit, build a relationship, apply. And then when you apply, what's the step number 4 after application?
I mean, that's securing the bag.
Okay, just securing the bag, and
that's it. I mean, and then if we want to, it kind of shift gears to like
Yeah.
the business, and I can give some insight on
Yeah.
on delegation, building systems and process.
But after you apply, like there's not like you don't ask like, hey, I want 50,000. Like the bank tells you what your limit is.
So good question, Caleb. So some banks will let you ask, others don't.
Okay.
So Wells Fargo, for example, does not let you ask,
Okay.
and they just give you what they think you deserve.
Yeah, love it.
Another thing is, it's very important for a max funding strategy. If someone wants to get as much credit as possible,
Yeah.
and really the most I see that I help people with in one kind of effort of funding, like in a kind of 1 week.
One LLC, or just
which actually I'll lead to.
okay.
Two LLCs.
Okay,
is,
two LLCs
is better.
Okay.
But if max funding, the most I can see like kind of in one round is around 225,000.
225,000 of 0%.
Yeah.
For 12 months.
Yeah. And that's on the high end.
Okay.
The average is closer, like to the people that I help, is closer to 100,000.
Still
a lot. And really, the differences there is people that one have two businesses. That does make it easier. Stronger profiles.
It could be two new businesses.
It can be two new businesses.
Wow.
Yeah. But let me finish this thought real quick. So the people that get the higher end of the funding, they have multiple businesses. Two. Having three is excessive. Like having two is best.
Okay.
Stronger profile of the credit profile, so more collective limits, longer, older age on the profile, higher score, lower utilization. One thing I skipped when we were talking about optimizing the profile was utilization. So a lot of people, it's common sense, lower the balance, higher the score. A lot of people know that. But if you can put it at like less than 10%, that's where you'll see the best score. 30% minimum is where I really put it before kind of moving people forward to my funding process. We can make some case-by-case exceptions when people have maybe one or two accounts just under 50% and their scores are still good. One reason why it's important to have a very thick profile, several accounts over several years, many on-time payments, is because when you have a high balance on maybe one of your 10 cards, it might not affect your score that much than if someone had three accounts.
Makes sense.
Because it's thicker.
Yes.
It's
It's more diversified.
more diversified. And same with a late payment. A question I get is, if I have a late payment, can I get funding? Well, I need to see your profile. Because if you just have three accounts, your average age is 2 years, one late payment is going to wreck your credit. If you have 15 years of age, 15 accounts, maybe your late payment is not going to be that bad.
Wow.
So wanted to make that clear for sure. With two businesses, so in a max funding strategy, having two businesses does help. There's certain banks where it makes sense to apply for two different cards, one per business. So the favorite banks we like to double dip on is Chase, Truist, US Bank, American Express. Those four are the banks where if someone has multiple entities, we'll pick the two strongest ones. Strongest in terms of age and nature of business. Like if they have construction, e-commerce, consulting, we're going to take the e-commerce and consulting.
Sorry, construction. No, out the window.
And so we pick the two, and because the banks like to, they justify it as, two businesses are asking for money, they're more lendable. They give more money because of that.
Interesting.
And then
I would almost see that as like the opposite, like focus versus not. But they two is better than one. But three is not better than two.
Nah, it's not.
Okay.
It's not. Two is the best. And then one thing I want to also make clear, and sometimes I forget to make this clear. I talk about credit a lot, and I don't. And sometimes I forget to make it clear. It's these business credit card accounts don't report to your personal credit profile. So if you max these cards out, it doesn't affect your score. So when I learned this 5-6 years ago, those are the two things that blew my mind. You can get access to 200 grand or more on 0% cards, and the balances don't show up on your personal credit report. Because if you max out a personal card, your score goes to crap. If you max out a business credit card, because the account is not showing on your personal report, it doesn't affect the score. It's crazy. And some people know that, but for the people who don't,
which
it's
is
a
wild.
huge thing.
Which is wild. What's the worst case scenario if you just don't pay?
Okay, so that is where it becomes a problem.
Okay.
If you don't pay, then it would report on your personal.
Oh, okay.
So you are personally guaranteeing these cards.
Yes.
But they're giving you the opportunity to use them without negatively affecting your personal credit card unless you default.
Understood.
Yeah.
Understood. Okay, that makes a lot of sense, because if that wasn't the case, you'd almost creating an incentive for people to not pay things back, and of course banks are smart.
Yeah.
And so wow, man, you're blowing my mind. Doesn't affect my so the credit utilization on business cards, while it's important on the personal side, for another way to say that is you don't want to have crazy high balances on your personal cards, because that could be a red flag potentially. But in business, the whole strategy is get 0%, max out the card, and then over the next 12 months you have access to that capital. I'm sure you've had, what happens if you're in a pickle and not able to pay this card back? You could either do two things. You could open up another card and roll that money over.
Yep.
Or, that's kind of where I personally have seen some people get in trouble, but it's not because of the card strategy. It's because of what they did with the money.
Yeah.
And so obviously, risk isn't anything, and you even said you lean into risk a little bit more than maybe the average person. But that would be the thing that I would just want to everyone to understand. If you're going to do this, amazing, but this is free money for a certain period of time. But I would
12
imagine
months.
12 months.
It's
11
not long.
months. Yeah.
It's long enough to do some great with.
Yeah.
But the time starts ticking for sure.
And then what is the interest rate after 12 months?
General credit card interest rates, 18, 25%.
So you definitely do not want to be paying that. How realistic, if I'm starting a new business and I'm two businesses and I'm working with you, we get $200,000 of 0%, 12 months. How realistic is it for me to then roll that money over the next year if I'm just Jack, I'm not making this investment thing work as fast as I thought?
Great question, Caleb. So doing a second round of funding is almost never as successful as the first round.
Yeah.
If you do the first round right. In the first round, we get 200,000, which is on the high end, to be clear.
Yeah.
We get 200,000. It's not likely we'll get 200,000 again.
Okay.
Unless there's a ton of payment history where you're spending the money, you're paying it down, spending it, paying it down, then it's a different ball game. But if it's just getting the capital, maxing it out, it's harder to get that again.
Yeah.
I will mention, if a card is maxed out, if a business card is maxed out at a bank, at a specific bank, and you go back to that same bank with that maxed out card, it's harder to get another one.
Yeah, because it's almost like working against you on the.
So generally, banks who have business cards can't see what other banks are lending you. So generally, Chase can't see what you have at American Express. Chase can't see what business credit you have at Bank of America.
Yep.
Bank of America generally can't see what you have at Chase.
Yep.
Unless they look at a business credit report, and Chase is the only one that reports there. A little advanced, we won't cover that. But when you go back to Chase, they can see what you have because it's their card, right? So if you're going back to the same bank, I always recommend, if you can bring the balance to at least, ideally 50%, it's going to be a better scenario, better conversation.
Okay.
I've seen people with an 80% maxed out Chase card get another huge limit card, 50K card, 75K card. I've seen it a handful of times, but it's you don't want to rely on that.
Yeah, totally.
So if you get cards at all the top banks that have all the 0% cards, it's completely maxed out. It is hard to get more. It's easier if you have a second entity, but still in general, all the banks you're maxed out. So it's not a great situation there. But if, for example, you get two 50K cards at Chase, you max it out, 100K, and you've never gone to Bank of America yet, you haven't gone to American Express
There's
yet,
opportunities.
go apply there, do a balance transfer. That's always possible.
Yeah.
And then another strategy that's been very helpful for me just in business and real estate investing is having business lines of credit.
Yes.
So with business lines of credit, you do have to have a business with 2 years of age.
Okay.
Sometimes they'll ask for tax returns,
Yeah.
but there are a good amount of options where you can get these business lines of credit where they don't ask for tax returns. Like Wells Fargo.
Yeah.
Truist is a good one.
Yep.
Citizens is a good one. Sometimes Chase doesn't.
Okay.
Sometimes US Bank doesn't.
Yep.
So with a business line of credit, for anyone who's not familiar, it's basically acts as a bank account.
Yeah.
So you get approved for $50,000 on this business line of credit. It pretty much just shows up as a bank account. You can just transfer money into your checking account, and you start to pay interest on it when you're borrowing.
Yep.
And you can just put it back as, it's fluid. You can just transfer. Interest rates on that is currently between 9 and 15%.
Yeah.
Maybe worse if you have
So
worse,
it's cheaper.
worse credit.
It's cheaper than 20, 25,
Cheaper than
30.
20. Like I bridge
Yeah.
things all the time with my
Yeah.
9% business line of credit.
Yeah, I love it, dude. Man, someone could be like, Jack, why is there even a business? Like, can't anyone just figure this out? And then after talking to you for 30, 40 minutes, I'm like, holy moly, how does anyone figure this out?
It's a lot, man. I've been doing it for over 4 years.
And how much credit, like free interest, I want to be careful with free. How much credit or capacity have you gotten personally over those 4 years on the strategy?
Oh, personally? I've lost track. Over 500,000.
Over 500,000
Yeah.
of 0%.
Yeah.
And now this is where we got to be really clear, not investment advice, but you're investing in your business. A lot of your students probably do Airbnb arbitrage, which in any of this stuff, there's risk. But even, I know that this would be lame, but you could even just put your money from a card and then put it in something that pays 5%.
You could, not the best.
Okay.
So one thing you have to consider is to get the credit off the card.
Yeah. There's like a cash advance.
So there's great strategies to get the cash off the card. There are third-party liquidators who will liquidate the credit into cash.
Okay.
You pay their invoice. It's a 3% processing fee.
Yep.
Their service fee is another 2 or 3%.
Got it.
And then they wire the money back to you.
Okay, so you wouldn't, you want to make sure that if you're paying 6%, let's just say, that your opportunity is far greater than 6%.
I'd say far greater than 10.
Yeah. That I teach the same stuff. Okay, that makes sense. So for the person like me that was just like, I'm not going to go, that would not make sense.
Here's an example of where I took some extra risk.
Yep.
I've bought Bitcoin miners 2 different times.
Yeah.
One in 2022 and one at the end of 24.
Okay.
With Bitcoin miners, there's a great tax deduction.
Yep.
And one of my great friends, I bought Bitcoin miners on a
Colin.
credit card.
Yeah.
Colin.
Yeah, love it.
And it was so good the first time in 2022. Just, obviously Bitcoin ripped, got a tax deduction. And then in 2024, I needed some more deductions. I was like, well, let me get some more 0% credit because I knew I can pay for that on a credit card and pay for it later.
Oh, yeah.
And so the Bitcoin miners won't mine enough Bitcoin for me to pay off the card in 12 months.
Yeah.
But I also have some confidence in Bitcoin appreciating a ton. Well, one, I also don't plan on selling the Bitcoin.
Yeah.
You can always borrow against it. I just started borrowing against my Bitcoin. I put it into wrapped Bitcoin, send it to Aave, and you can borrow 50%
No
of
way.
your Bitcoin. You pay a 10% interest rate, so it's almost like a business line of credit, but it's your bank. You know what I'm saying?
That's fascinating, man.
And so ultimately, I wanted to get Bitcoin miners to get the deduction.
Yeah.
And also at the price it was months ago.
And the deduction also you need to factor into your overall wealth efficiency. So business systems, I mean, we could go forever. How, like, business systems, any like high level, like I just want to first of all thank you for, this is like in depth, like someone who's watching this video is taking a ton of notes. Thank you. Anything else you want to talk about business systems? Anything else on your mind? I mean, like, I know there's so much that we could talk about. We could talk about snowboarding, we could talk about entrepreneurship, talk about politics, talk about your blood test that you get all the time. But we got to end somewhere.
Well, I'm very pro freedom, and I think the best way to create freedom for yourself and your family is through business.
Yeah.
And I think getting access to capital like this is the best and easiest way for someone to get into business and break free of the system. There's risks, but it's, I think, a very good way. And when it comes to, cool, you have a business concept, you know what you're going to do with the money, you really need to think how to run that business good. And for me, I've built a large team around me. And it started with a very small team. Mm-hmm. And one thing I've noticed is when you hire someone and train them, they often become better at that task than you.
Yeah.
Like with my done-for-you funding business, I made hundreds of templates. I did all the customer service at first, literally almost everything I was doing myself.
Yep.
And then I started to develop the system, put these automations in place, send this template out here. We make the credit analysis like this. Then I started training someone else. And then that person became better than me.
Yeah, I love it.
Now, like I asked my team, how do we do this?
Yeah.
Like I pretty much set it all up, but they know more than me.
They're in it. Yeah.
So I think for a business owner, it can be very difficult to let go control.
Yeah.
But if someone else does it 80% as good as you, that is just as good as you doing 100%. So you can focus on other things.
Yeah.
And so I've hired a lot of people from different countries, the Philippines, Costa Rica, Argentina, and they do just phenomenal work.
Yeah.
And so I think delegating things to an assistant, delegating things, like you need to figure it out first and then make training videos, make it a system, and then train someone else so you can then work on the next thing.
Yeah.
So that's been really huge for me. Like I mentioned, I was snowboarding this morning.
I love it, dude. Money's
rolling in, and I just got to give credit to my team. And it's been a long, amazing journey. And one thing I noticed when my dad is in business, and he created some freedom for himself, but he's always been a one-man team.
Yeah.
Still is.
Yeah.
Small business, made enough, but he never delegated anything.
Yeah.
And so I just I knew that aspect is
wealth
not how you do it.
Systems, and a part of systems is people.
Yeah.
Delegation.
And then I think, and I just read Dan Martell's book, Buying Back Your Time.
Yeah, it's a great book.
Epic. I just finished it today.
Yeah.
Highly recommend Buy Back Your Time, Dan Martell. One of the things he's talking about is your buyback rate. And I forget the equation, but it's something like you take what you make in a year, you do some kind of equation, but if you can find someone to pay for your buyback rate, then do that all day, dude.
Yeah.
Hire someone to get your groceries, hire someone to do all these different tasks for you so you can stay focused on the big, important things. Yeah. And I tell some of my people on my team that I'm trying to push up to become bigger leaders, and it's like I tell them, I don't want you to be busy all day.
Yeah.
If you did 10 important things, made 10 important decisions, then 50 small menial tasks, I want you to do 10 important decisions all day.
Yeah.
So to really have that mindset, and I think if you're doing a million things in your business, your mind's scattered. Yeah. You're not going to be sharp on that decision that you need to make. Yeah. If I make 3 really good decisions in my business in a day, that is phenomenal.
Yeah.
And good. I do that because I have a big team that helps with a lot of the smaller ones.
Love it.
So I wish I took it serious to hire people way early on in my journey of business.
Yeah.
And I just really wish I pushed myself harder to hire and delegate. But is what it is. We're here now.
It is what it is. Jack, thank you. Really took away a lot of interesting takeaways. I'm gonna have to rewatch this, take some notes, and I think the big thing is if you have something that could, you talked about freedom. If you have something that can take you to the next level, if you can adjust risk and understand that, and if the only reason why you can't do something is money, that's no longer an excuse. No longer if you're watching this in North America, I'm not sure if this works in Canada, but we won't open up a can of worms. But if you're watching this in the USA, and money is the only excuse of why you can't do something, you have zero excuses, and that would be like my big encouragement. And then obviously there's a lot more. Like there's a lot more to happiness, mindset. It's one thing to make money. keep money? I know talk about 2 minutes on life insurance. You have life insurance?
I do have life insurance. It's cash value, maxed out, where I'm using it as much as an
and you're borrowing against it
as I can.
Yeah.
I'm borrowing against it. I did a lot of research on how to structure them correctly, just like you're an expert in. I'm a huge fan of that product, and I'm actually I'm having my brother get a policy like today, and I think it's an amazing product.
Yeah, so it's
a
like
no-brainer for business owners.
But the point that I'm making is like whether it's tax strategy, credit strategy, life insurance, estate plan, like all these things fit together.
For sure.
And so you got to figure out, like, there's a gifting of figuring out what's my next best step. That's when you're talking about your 3 best decisions. When it comes to personally, what's the thing that you needed to shift that will make the big difference? But then there's new problems. Taxes wasn't necessarily an issue when you first started. Yeah. Now it's something that you probably think about more than the average person. So Jack, thank you. Where can people find out more about this? If there's someone that's like, I want to learn more about how to work with you, your group, what credit cards to get, like where can people find out what you're up to and follow your amazing journey?
Cool. First of all, I want to say thank you, Caleb. Yep. Thank you, listeners. Really appreciate you guys being here. I hope today was valuable. To learn more about how to get involved in what I do, we'll drop a link in the show notes. Essentially, I have a done-for-you funding service where I help entrepreneurs get access to capital like this. It's a very done-for-you approach. So if that sounded, you can do a lot with that information that I just gave you.
Yeah.
But if it sounded like a lot and you want someone to hold your hand through the process, that's the service that I have. Awesome. And we do great. So if you're interested, click the link down below to learn more. If you want to find me on Instagram, it's Jack McColl on Instagram. We got a lot of good stuff in the works.
Amazing, Jack. Thank you.
Thanks, brother.